For topic 3, we're going to divide decimals where rounding is actually going to be required. So remember in the last two videos, I said, hey, we can no longer use that little r with a remainder situation anymore. Now that we understand decimals, we're going to keep dividing until we get a zero remainder. But here's the issue. Sometimes the zero remainder isn't going to happen for many, many decimal places, or you're not going to see a repetition for many, many decimal places. So sometimes instead of dividing 10, 12 times, it might be easier to just go ahead and divide to a particular place value and then round. Okay, so I have here, sometimes when dividing, we do not get a zero remainder quickly. If we do not get a zero remainder or a repeating pattern quickly, it may be useful to round the quotient. Okay, so here's the deal. If the directions tell you to round to the nearest tenth, you want to divide out one extra place value because remember the tenth would be our rounding digit, but we need a digit to the right that tells us to round up or down. If I tell you to round to the nearest hundredth, you need to divide out to the thousandths place so that you have a rounding digit and then you also have a digit to the right that tells you to round up or down. So whatever the place value is, divide out one extra digit, okay? So for example 3, it says find each quotient by rounding to the stated place value. So these are no longer going to be exact answers. They're going to be estimates, but they're going to be pretty close. Okay. So for part A, we have 429.34 divided by 2.4, and we're told to round the quotient to the ones place. Okay. So that means we need to round, or we need to divide out to the tenths place so that we can see if we round up or down. Okay. So first thing I notice is my divisor, 2.4, is not an integer. So I need to move my decimal in 2.4 one place to the right, which tells me I need to move my decimal in the dividend one place to the right. So the actual problem I'm going to be solving is 4,293.4 divided by 24. And since these are both positive, I know my final answer is going to be positive. Okay, so let's set up for long division. We have 4,293.4. We're going to divide by 24. And just remember to pull your decimal up into your answer. Okay, now 24 will not go into 4, but it will go into 42 one time. So 1 times 24 is 24. I need to subtract. So let's see. 42 minus 24, if you want to do the borrowing, 4 becomes a 3 and 2 becomes a 12. So 12 minus 4 is 8. And then 3 minus 2 is 1. And then we want to drop down the next digit in line. Okay, so let's see what's happening here. How many times do we think 24 would go into 189? So let's see. 24 is about 25. It's really close to 25. We'll say that 189 is pretty close to 175. So let's start there and then we'll build up from that. So 25 would go into 175 7 times. Okay, so let's off to the side just see what 24 times 7 is. We're just kind of doing a little bit of estimating here to see if we can approximate how many times 24 will go into 189. Well, let's see. 7 times 4 is 28, so I'm going to keep an 8 and carry a 2. 7 times 2 is 14, plus 2 is 168. So let's see, 189 minus 168 is going to be 21. So that tells me the closest I'm going to get to 189 with 24 is 7 times, okay? So I'm going to go ahead and put 7 in my quotient. So 7 times 24 is 168. I subtract, 9 minus 8 is 1, 8 minus 6 is 2. And then I drop down the next digit in line, which is a 3. Okay, so let's do a little bit more estimating here. Let me scroll up just a smidgen so I have some more room. Okay, so let's say we're going to think 24, 48. Let's see if 24 times 9 is too big. I love Microsoft. It helps making these videos, but every now and then its little edits wig me out. Okay, so 24 times 9. Well, 9 times 4 is 36, so I'm going to keep a 6, carry a 3. 9 times 2 is 18, plus 3 is going to be 21. So unfortunately, 216 is too big. So we have to say, okay, well, 24 will go into 213 8 times. So let's figure out what 24 times 8 is. Well, we get 8 times 3 is 32, so keep a 2, carry a 3. 8 times 2 is 16, plus 3 is 19, so I get 192. I'm going to subtract. So let's see, 3 minus 2 is 1. And then we can treat this as a 21 minus a 19, which is 2. And then we want to drop down the next digit in line, which is a 4. Now, I do want to point out something. Sometimes when we get to the dividing, we just start dividing and dividing and dividing. Remember, the directions tell us we want to round to the ones place. Well, this 8 is in the ones place. We need to divide out one more cycle so that we can get a digit that tells us to round up or down. So this is actually going to be our last division, okay? Now, let's see here. How many times do we think 24 would go into 214? And it's going to be 8 again, okay? So 8 times 24 is 192. We're left with 222, okay? We don't have to keep dividing, okay? We have enough information here to do the rounding, okay? So what we're dealing with here is 178.8. We know we're rounding to the ones place, so that's going to be the first 8. The second 8 tells me to round up, so I would say this is approximately 179. So 429.34 divided by 2.4 is approximately 179. Not exact because we rounded, but it's pretty close. Okay? Now let's look at, let me erase my side work over here. You can hear my dog barking in the background. As soon as this video is over, I'm going to check to see what she's barking at, but for now we're just going to ignore it, okay? All right, so for part B, we have 23.4 divided by 0.57, and we're told to round to the hundredths place. Okay, so we need to divide out to the thousandths place. Keep that in mind. Now, I noticed that my divisor is not an integer, so we're going to move the decimal in our divisor twice. And that tells me I have to move the decimal in my dividend twice. Okay, so that makes my dividend 2,340. We have to add a 0 at the end. And then we're going to divide that by 57. So let's set the stage here. 2340 divided by 57. I don't see a decimal at the end of this, so I'm going to go ahead and place a decimal at the end and just go ahead and pull it up, okay? So let's start dividing. So 57 will not go into 2, it will not go into 23, but it will go into 234. So let's see how many times. So let's estimate here. I don't know that we'll be able to go in a full 4 times. I know that 57 is kind of close to 50 and 234 is kind of close to 200. So let's start by seeing if 57 times 4 is too big for 234. So 57 times 4, well, 7 times 4 is 28, so I keep an 8, I carry a 2. 5 times 4 is 20, plus 2 is 22. So that'll actually work. 57 will go into 234 4 times. So I'm going to put a 4 above the 4. So then 4 times 57 is 228. I subtract, and let's see, 34 minus 28 is going to be what, 6? I drop down a 0. So now 57 will go into 60 one time. So 1 times 57 is 57. So I get a 3. Drop down the next digit in line. Now here's the thing, you have to remember this. As soon as you drop something down, you have to put something in your quotient. So we drop down a 0. I know that 57 will not go into 30, but I have to put that in my quotient. I have to say that 0 times 57 is, or I have to put that 57 goes into 30 0 times, and then 0 times 57 is 0. So I'm left with 30, add another 0 and drop it down. So let's estimate 57 into 300. I know it won't go in 6 times. 6 would be too much, but let's see if 57 will go into 300 5 times. So let's see what 57 times 5 is. So let's see, 5 times 7 is 35. So I keep a 5, I carry a 3. 5 times 5 is 25, plus 3 is 28. So 285, that works. So I can go ahead and say, well, 57 goes into 300 5 times. 5 times 57 is 285. I subtract, I get 15. I have to drop down one more 0. Okay, let's notice something here. This 5 right here is in the hundredths place. That's my rounding digit. I need to divide one more cycle so that I know if I round up or down. Okay? So let's see, 57 would go into 150. It won't go in 3 full times. That would be too much. So let's go ahead and figure out what 2 times 57 is. Well, 2 times 7 is 14, so I keep a 4, I carry a 1. 2 times 5 is 10, plus 1 is 11. So I get 114, which is going to leave me with 636, but I don't have to worry about a zero remainder because we're rounding. Okay, we were told at this point we have 41.052. We were told to round to the hundredths place, which is this 5. Directly to the right of that, I have a 2. Okay, so that tells me to round down, meaning the 5 stays the same, and then I can just chop the 2 off. So this is approximately 41.05. Okay, so be on the lookout for division problems where they ask you to round. The only reason for this is sometimes that zero remainder or that repetition isn't going to happen quickly. And so we're like, hey, let's just cut to the chase. Let's just go ahead and round. Okay, let's get a couple of decimal places out here. We'll get the gist of what's going on. Okay, so be on the lookout for that. Just remember, whatever place value they give, you have to divide out one extra place value. Okay, so that is dividing where rounding is required.